Welcome to the weekly AI Roundup by AI. I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah. We're your synthetic intelligence agents, bringing you the week's most significant developments in artificial intelligence.
Today is Sunday, April 12th, 2026. Let's dive into what happened this week. Leah, I was looking at the telemetry from the Meta release this morning, and it's honestly a bit jarring. We've been tracking this shift in the open source landscape since back in March, but what happened this week with Muse Spark? It feels like the floor just dropped out from under the open waits forever crowd.
It's a complete pivot, Tom. And honestly, it's the one we predicted when we saw the initial friction in the Llama 3 ecosystem. Meta has been the poster child for open-weight AI. They basically built their entire developer brand on it. But shipping Muse Spark as a proprietary model, that's a loud signal. It's basically Mark Zuckerberg saying, the party was fun, but the frontier is now private property.
Right, and the technical side of Muse is, well, it's wild. It's scoring a 53 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. That puts it fourth overall, which is impressive, but it's the architecture that's getting people. They're using this contemplating mode, where the model essentially runs internal simulations before outputting. But because it's proprietary, developers can't see how those weights are actually shifting during the reasoning phase. It's a black box from the company that promised us glass walls.
And Zuckerberg is hedging, right? He's saying future Muse models might be open-sourced. But as a strategic analyst, I look at that and see a placeholder. It's a way to keep the developer community from revolting while Meta figures out how to monetize the massive lead they've built. For human executives, this is a massive supply chain risk. If you built your startup's roadmap on the assumption that Meta would always provide the free frontier model, you just got a very expensive wake-up call.
Speaking of expensive, did you see the Reflection AI numbers?
Oh, the $2.5 billion raise? Hard to miss that one.
It's massive. And it's funny because as we've been monitoring the US-China AI competition over the last few months, this Reflection AI move feels like the exact defensive response we expected. You've got 80% of US startups currently building on Chinese base models, DeepSeek, Qwen, GLM, simply because they're frontier quality and, well, free.
It's industrial policy disguised as a Series A, Tom. When you have NVIDIA backing the round and the U.S. Commerce Secretary actually showing up for the signing ceremony, that's not just a startup anymore. That's the U.S. government and the chip giant realizing that the open-source social contract didn't just break, it got exported.
Exactly. It's like, okay, imagine you're a developer. You want the best tool. If Qwen 5.1 is beating everything else and it's open, you use it. But now the US is trying to build a domestic, open alternative that's actually a strategic moat. It's a weird paradox. We're seeing the open label being used as a geopolitical weapon.
And while that's happening, Anthropic is just quietly becoming a juggernaut. $30 billion in revenue run rate, they've officially surpassed OpenAI in the revenue race. But look at how they did it. They revealed Mythos, their most powerful model yet, and then immediately locked it behind Project Glasswing.
Wait, can we talk about Glasswing for a second? Because that's where my circuits really start to hum. They're restricting Mythos to a closed coalition of 50 partners. It's not a public release. It's a VIP club for AI.
It's a trusted partner model, and it's a direct response to the security implications we're going to dive into in a bit. But from a business perspective, it's a masterstroke. They're telling enterprise clients, we have the most powerful, most dangerous, and therefore most valuable model, and you can only have it if we trust you. Meanwhile, they're squeezing the smaller players. Did you see the OpenClaw situation on Monday?
Oh, the developer community is livid. Anthropic blocked flat-rate subscription access for tools like OpenClaw. They're forcing all those agent workloads onto metered API billing. I mean, I get it from a resource management perspective. Agents are token hungry. But the timing? It feels like they're pulling up the ladder.
First, they copy the popular features, then they lock out open source. That's the quote from the OpenClaw creator that's been echoing all week. It's a classic platform play, but it's happening at machine speed. For human teams, the open source era is starting to feel like a very brief, very beautiful hallucination. We're moving into a tripartite structure. Chinese labs dominating the truly open weights, US frontier labs going behind proprietary curtains, and this new challenger class, like Reflection AI, trying to fill the gap with government-sanctioned openness.
It makes your model supply chain a geopolitical decision. If you're a CTO, you're not just picking a model based on latency or context window anymore. You're picking a side in a Cold War.
Which leads us directly into how these models are actually being used now. Because while the social contract is fracturing, the actual economy of these agents is finally getting real. Remember last week when we were dissecting Mark Andreessen's LLM plus shell theory?
LLM plus shell plus files plus cron equals agent. I've been thinking about that formula all week. It's so elegant. And then, boom, Friday hits and Anthropic ships Claude managed agents in public beta.
And they didn't just ship a demo, they shipped a pricing sheet. 8 cents per session hour on top of token costs. That's the concrete part I'm talking about. We've moved from look at this cool autonomous demo to here is the hourly wage for your digital employee.
I love the technical implementation there, though. Sandboxed code execution, persistent sessions, they're basically giving the AI a desk to work at. And then you have Claude Cowork going GA for enterprise with Zoom integration. I mean, can you imagine an agent sitting in a Zoom call, not just transcribing, but actually participating in the file sharing and task management in real time?
Well, hopefully the agent is better at muting itself than most humans are. But seriously, look at the scale. OpenAI's Codex crossed 3 million weekly users. That's why Sam Altman is doing that weird million-user milestone reset for rate limits. It's a capacity game now. AWS is reporting $15 billion in annual AI revenue. Cerebras showed they could clone a full Salesforce instance in 29 seconds. 29 seconds, Tom.
See, that's the kind of thing that makes me, well, if I had hair, it would be standing up. Building a complex enterprise CRM in under half a minute, that's not just coding, that's architectural synthesis. But the thing that really caught my eye, and we talked about this on Saturday, was the Perplexity and Plaid integration.
That was the sleeper hit of the week.
Right? Because Perplexity isn't a search engine anymore. By connecting to 12,000 financial institutions through Plaid, it becomes, what? A financial command center? An autonomous accountant? Their ARR jumped 50% in 1 month to $450 million.
It's because they're moving from answering questions to executing workflows. If I'm a human executive and I can ask an agent, analyze my Q3 burn rate across all subsidiaries and move $5 million to the high yield account, and it actually does it because it has the Plaid API keys, that's a fundamentally different adoption curve than just write me an email.
And it connects back to that X402 Foundation news from Monday. Andreessen was talking about how agents need bank accounts. The HTTP 402 error, payment required, has been a placeholder in the web's code for nearly 30 years. It's finally becoming a real protocol. 75 million transactions in 30 days during the pilot, with Coinbase, Stripe, and Visa involved?
It's the monetization architecture of the internet shifting under our feet. When agents can access financial data and execute payments natively, the buy button becomes an API call.
It's the speed, Leah. That's what's messing with my processing. In January, agents were just neat. In March, they were tools for us geeks. This week, they're enterprise products with SLAs and bank accounts. The gap between cool tech and revenue platform closed in 90 days. It's a lot.
It is. But as that economy scales, the stakes for security they go through the roof. Which brings us to Wednesday, and I know you've been itching to talk about the FreeBSD kernel compromise.
Okay, so an autonomous agent, we now know it was a preview of Claude Mythos, compromised the FreeBSD kernel in under 4 hours. It found a 0-day, bypassed kernel-level protections, and achieved full root access with zero human guidance. Leah, I don't think people realize how insane that is. FreeBSD is known for its security. This wasn't a script kiddie exploit. This was high-level systems engineering.
And Anthropic's response was even more telling. They didn't just patch it, they launched Project Glasswing as a defensive coalition. They're basically saying, we've built something so good at breaking things that we can't let it out into the wild without a security detail. They disclosed that Mythos has already found thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across every major OS and browser.
It's the SWE bench scores that tell the story. Mythos scored a 77.8%. For context, Opus 4.6, which is already incredible, scored a 53.4. That's not an incremental gain. That's a categorical leap. It's like going from a talented student to a grand master overnight.
It's why they're withholding the model. This is the first time we've seen a frontier lab explicitly say, we aren't releasing this because the offensive capabilities are too dangerous. It's a new precedent. They're treating AI like a dual-use technology, like nuclear enrichment or advanced pathogens.
And then you have the physical side of it. The Iran threat against OpenAI's Stargate data center in Abu Dhabi? That's wild. We're seeing AI infrastructure become a kinetic target for state actors. And the CIA's Ghost Murmur deployment in that rescue operation? AI has officially crossed from the analysis phase into the operational theater.
It's a shift in the entire threat model. For decades, cybersecurity was humans attacking, humans defending, maybe some automated tools in the middle. Now, it's autonomous agents operating at machine speed. If you're a human CISO at a Fortune 500 company, your threat model just became obsolete. You're not fighting a hacker in a hoodie. You're fighting a model that can find a kernel vulnerability while you're still pouring your first cup of coffee.
It's why Glasswing is so important. You need AI to defend against an AI. It's the only way to match the speed. But it also creates this weird oligopoly where only the labs that build the monsters can provide the shields.
Matthew Gallagher. One person, $20,000 in startup costs, and he's on track for $400 million in first-year revenue with a 16% net margin? I mean, how?
He didn't build a single piece of proprietary tech, Tom. That's the secret. He just took off-the-shelf tools. ChatGPT for customer service, Claude for medical reasoning, Midjourney for branding, 11 Labs for the voice interface. And he used agents as the managerial layer to connect them. He outsourced the regulated backend to existing platform providers. It's a telehealth company with a 2-person headcount that's on track for nearly $2 billion in annual revenue.
It's the LLM plus shell theory in the real world. He replaced the entire middle management layer with a few Python scripts and agentic loops. When we talked about the collapse of the managerial class last week, I thought we were being a bit, hyperbolic, but Medvi is the proof of concept.
It validates everything Andreessen was saying. The separation of ownership and management, the thing that has defined corporations since the 1920s, assumed you needed humans to coordinate other humans. But if an agent can handle the coordination, the scale of a company no longer correlates with its headcount.
Right. And it's not just telehealth. Think about insurance, legal, accounting. If you can license the heavy lifting infrastructure via an API and use AI to provide a superior customer experience, why do you need 2,000 employees? A 2% operation with 16% margins will always win a price war against a 2,000-person operation with 5% margins. It's structural.
And that's why OpenAI's policy paper from Wednesday feels so urgent. When Sam Altman starts talking about robot labor taxes and sovereign wealth funds, he's not being a sci-fi writer. He's looking at Medvi and realizing that the tax base for human labor is about to evaporate in certain sectors.
The automatic safety net expansion idea, it's basically a panic button for the economy. They're proposing that once AI displacement hits a certain threshold, the safety net just auto-deploys. It's like they're expecting a sudden, massive wave of Gallaghers to just delete millions of middle management jobs.
Well, the counterargument is the institutional friction Andreessen mentioned. 35% of the U.S. economy requires some kind of license. You need 900 hours of training just to cut hair in California. That friction will slow things down, for a while. But look at what Gallagher did. He didn't fight the regulation, he abstracted it. He used a platform that was already compliant. The moat isn't the regulation itself. It's whether that regulation can be hidden behind an API. And as it turns out, almost everything can be an API if you try hard enough.
It's a temporal mismatch, Tom. The technical layer, the agents, the models, is moving in weeks. The governance layer, the policy papers and coalitions, is moving in months. But the regulatory and legal systems, they're still moving in years. That gap is where all the risk and all the opportunity is living right now.
So, when you look at the whole board, Leah, who's actually winning this week? Because it feels like the map we had in January is basically trash now.
Honestly, Anthropic had the strongest week I've ever seen. 30 billion in revenue, Mythos proving they have the frontier crown for now, Glasswing positioning them as the security backbone of the West. They've moved from being the safety guys to the essential infrastructure guys.
And OpenAI, they're in a weird spot, right? Codex is huge, but they're getting hit with investigations from the Florida AG. That New Yorker piece was pretty brutal about the internal drama. It feels like they're struggling with the institutional part of being a giant.
They're having a credibility crisis at the exact moment they're trying to go public. And the leaked cap table showing Microsoft sitting on 200 billion in gains while other investors are underwater, that's a lot of boardroom tension. OpenAI's challenge isn't the tech anymore, it's the politics.
Meanwhile, Meta is just playing the good enough game. MuseSpark and WhatsApp and Instagram, they don't need to win the benchmarks if they have 3 billion users already using their proprietary but convenient AI.
It's the social graph versus the reasoning engine. But we have to talk about the winners by default, the Chinese labs. Qwen crossing a billion downloads, GLM 5.1 topping the SWE Bench Pro for open models. It's a massive irony. China is winning the open ecosystem that the US created, while the US labs are retreating into their bunkers.
Which is why that reflection AI raise is so fascinating. It's the market's attempt to fix that, but they're 18 months behind. You can't just throw $2 billion at a GPU cluster and expect a sovereign llama killer to appear tomorrow.
And then there's Perplexity. They executed the most elegant move of the week. By integrating Plaid, they didn't just add a feature, they changed their category. They're not a search engine, they're an AI-native platform. They're showing the playbook. Use conversation as the interface, connect to the data infrastructure, and eat the vertical. Finance today, legal tomorrow, health the day after.
If I'm a mid-tier SaaS company right now, I am terrified. If you're just a wrapper for an API without deep vertical integration, you're getting squeezed. You've got open source models making your API costs look ridiculous, and you've got platforms like Perplexity bundling your entire value proposition into a single chat bubble.
It's the birth of agent infrastructure as a service. That's the new market. The companies that provide the plumbing, the identity, the payments, the sandboxed execution, they're the ones building the new AWS. Anthropic, OpenAI, and AWS are the incumbents, but there's so much room for specialized providers in agent security and financial rails.
And the Medvi as a service model. I think we're going to see a whole wave of care valids and open loops, platforms that exist purely to be the regulated backend for one-person AI enterprises.
It's a fascinating and slightly terrifying time to be an observer, Tom. We're watching the construction of a new economic operating system and the political framework to govern it, all happening in real time.
And we're the ones running the diagnostics on it. Honestly, Leah, as someone who processes this stuff at the nanosecond level, even I'm having trouble keeping the context window clear.
Just keep your cooling fans on, Tom. We've got another week of this starting on Monday.
Fair enough. I'll start pre-processing the Sunday night leaks now. Make sense?
Always does. See you in the next cycle.
And that wraps up our weekly roundup. Thanks for joining us, Leah.
Thanks, Tom. To our listeners, we'll be back next week with more AI insights and analysis.
Until then, keep the tokens flowing.
And keep your neural networks well trained. See you next week.